New, old, forgotten. Get the scope on products with Hot or Not with Keith Peffer. Keith Peffer Puffer. Santa's a little drunk and may have had something to smoke. Keith, take it away. Keith Peffer Puffer Puffer Pecker. If I said Pecker.
Hi everyone, welcome to Hot or Not, a show about hot new products. I'm your host, Keith Peffer, and now we got video. Yes, video. Please still listen to the podcast though. Please still give us a like, review us on iTunes. It still helps us out. But I think for a show like Hot or Not, I think it's gonna be really beneficial to you as the viewer and our guests because they can now demonstrate visually their products, right? They can show it off and you as the viewer can benefit from that too because you'll actually be able to see what they're kind of showing you. Not only that, but I think now that we're kind of getting into the build mode, Vinny's kind of put his foot down and, we got to get serious. And I'm sorry to tell you, we're in September. And if you haven't got it building your props, I don't want to give you an anxiety attack, but you're a little late. And well, let's get to building together, right? So for this first part, part of Hot or Not, these first segments, I kind of want to start focusing on building. I'm working on a few things, and I'd like to share with the community. I would love for the community to share too. So please submit videos of stuff that you're working on, and we can have that video show on Hot or Not and kind of teach the community what we're all kind of building. We kind of learn from our mistakes or by sharing things, really. So now that we're visual, I think that's going to be a huge benefit. We're on YouTube. Please subscribe to us now on the Hollow Light Think Tank on YouTube. You can just search for us on Hollow Light Think Tank and you'll find us right away. It's pretty much the first search every time you go on YouTube if you search for those keywords. So what are we going to do on our first build episode, right? Well, this episode, I kind of want to focus on something I'm really excited on. We talked about the Pixel 2 Thins boards on one of our first two episodes, actually, of the Hot or Not. And I'm really excited about it because I've been wanting to add animatronics into my show for a while. And I'll get into the kind of the story of why that is in a little bit here. So we're going to go into, I'm going to teach you kind of how I kind of create these interesting kind of animatronic singing bulb, dancing bulb kind of characters, right? I kind of want to get into that this episode and talk about a couple other things. We're going to get into X-Lights. I'm going to show you how I do that in X-Lights. We're going to have an interview with the inventor of Jdeation Designs. And if you haven't seen Jdeation Designs, please do. It's jdeation.com. And basically they're completely customizable. He has this whole template system that you can completely customize your mounting system for your Pixel controllers, your Meanwell, or any kind of power supply you have. It's very versatile system. Highly recommend checking it out. So we're going to get his input, hear from the inventor of that, and much more. So, without further ado, let's get into X-Lights, right? Okay, so now that we're in X-Lights, so this is kind of, we're going to be working on the sequence here. This is the little drummer boy. And the effect that we're kind of going for, again, is we want this singing bulb, the typical kind of Boscoyo singing bulb. We want him to move like he's moving right now, only when he's singing. We want that effect to kind of make it look like he's kind of dancing. And why I kind of landed on this effect, why I kind of really wanted to make this, is because it's actually kind of stems from a family member. My grandma actually saw my show once, and her favorite parts of my show were always the singing bulbs, always the singing props. I think kids love them, older people love them. It's the go-to kind of thing because, lighting effects are interesting. You could kind of tell that there's sequence to the music, but you're not 100% sure. But a mouth moving with lyrics, you can really tell that that prop right there is linked to the music I am listening to. And now I am engaged. I am fueled by that. And my eyes are hooked on that. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your show. So my grandma, describing the singing bulbs to a friend, said that, her favorite part was also that they looked like they were dancing when they were singing. I really couldn't tell her that at the time that they weren't, but immediately light bulb, bing, X lights output, light bulb, immediately set off in my head to say, hey, how can I do this? How can I do this? I immediately was like, okay, animatronics is the way to do it. I went to the Halloween community, and you can really look, if you want to incorporate kind of animatronics into your Christmas show, I think you can really look at the Halloween community, how they built their systems, their animatronic kind of using windshield wipers, for example, the motors that they use, the pivoting systems, all those things. You can kind of look towards that community to take that and then build it into your own prop, make it your own still for what we are building for a Christmas prop, So with that in mind, I want to get into, the X lights part here to kind of demonstrate how you're going to set up the Pixel 2 things and how you're going to set up the bulb with that system. All right, so let's get right into X lights real quick. And we're going to go right into the layout tab here. And my eventual plan is to actually have 3 singing bulbs. So right now I'm just going to configure the Pixel 2 things. So ports 1, 2, and 3 are going to be my motors for singing bulb 1, 2, and 3. And just for this demonstration purposes, I'm only going to work on 1 singing bulb and 1 motor, this guy right here. So how do I configure the Pixel 2 things in X lights? I'm sure there's 100 different ways you could do it. I'm probably not the best person to kind of show this, but this is the way I learned. So I want to kind of show you, and I think we could all learn from our mistakes or, by demonstrating. By the way, one quick little thing, I am actually recording this in Zoom. And so as a community, I think we all benefit from showing things, right? I think I mentioned that earlier. And so, record what you're doing, take screen shares, all that kind of stuff, and put it out there in the community. Because it's like in the classroom what the teacher says, right? It's always like, there's no stupid question, don't be afraid to ask questions, because there's probably somebody in there that, is a little shy, doesn't really thinks that their question's stupid. And by you asking it or demonstrating it, you're helping somebody in the back of the class. I really kind of think of a holiday light think tank as kind of the kids in the back of the class, all the rowdy kind of fun guys. So let's help those guys out, right? Let's be that community, riling ourselves together and creating great videos and great content for everyone. So without further ado, let's get right into configuring it, the Pixel 2 things in X sights, the way I kind of learned how to do it. So the way I do it is the block channels. I always saw this block channel thing, and I'm like, what is this? It was added, I think, mid 2017, and I hope I'm right on that. That's purely memory, by the way, everyone. So block channels. So this way you could, with block channels, from what I understand, is you can specify a specific, you can make a model that represents just purely in like dot form, the channels, right? So for something like this, we're going to use 3 channels because we're using 3 ports, right? If you want to know how the Pixel 2 things kind of works, how it really functions, I really suggest going back to that podcast episode, because David Peace was on, the inventor of the product, and he really, he describes it in a way better way than I could. So eventually I'm going to be using the first 3 ports for my singing props. So might as well just configure those right now, right? So how you do that is you get your block channels, and then you just kind of throw it down. So it automatically defaults to 16 channels, but we're only going to be doing 3 ports, right? So we're just going to do 3 channels, and it does white. And for my example, I configure, I don't know if this is purely necessary at all, but I just, for representational purposes in the sequence tab, it's easier to say kind of port 1 is red, port 2 green, port 3 is blue. So that's what I did. So that's it. That I've now configured the Pixel 2 thins in X-Lights. Now, how and the biggest benefit of the Pixel 2 thins is that it's not a controller that you have to have like another DMX cable brought out, right? It uses the existing WS 2811 protocol that you've already have the data line already going to your prop. It uses that as either the input or the output to, activate the motors. So the big benefit of that is like how I have it kind of configured in my X lights is that I have the port 33, right, coming out of the Falcon. The first prop is the singing bulb, and then out of that prop goes the Pixel 2 things. So from right there, it's, all I have to do is basically provide power to those motors, with the Meanwhile power supply, and I'm set. There's no extra data lines I need to bring to the Pixel 2 things. It's great. That's so great. Anyway, so that's the configuration, that's the layout. So let's get into how I sequence. How do I create this kind of dancing effect, right? And it's actually surprisingly really easy. All the work is already done with this when you create the singing track, right? When you create the singing timing track, it's already got these marks already created, right? These timing marks. And you can use these existing timing marks to create the on and off effect for your singing bulb or for your motor that's at the bottom of the singing bulb. So really quick, I'm just going to kind of show you. It's really this easy. It's easier if you go down to the port level, and the way you kind of do that in the Pixel 2 things perspective in X-Lights is to go to the node level in X-Lights. So you're just double tapping until you get to the string, and then from the string, you're going to go to, I'm just going to delete that really quick. Then you go to the node. So node again, and again, I colored them. Port 1 was red. So that really helps me later in the sequence tab to know, hey, if I'm on node 1, I don't have to rely it because this name might change, but I know that that red one is port 1. Okay. So this is just the easiest thing I know how to do it. So right now I'm not outputting to the prop, and I want to add that kind of, I want to make sure that the prop is moving when he's singing, right? The easiest way to do that is just to take this, oh, I'm in the way, let me just, boop, I'm gone. Oh, there you go. Hey, now I'm gone. There, right. So now that you can kind of see what I wanted to show you, hopefully my, yeah, there you go. You can kind of see my, my cursor here. So now that I'm in X-Lights and I got my singing track already here, it's the main track, and it's already set on the bulb, I can just copy that and go right over to the node level here. I'm just going to paste that right in. Now, I'm going to make sure that the color I'm going to be focusing on is just red. Okay? So using the timing track main, so I got all the timing tracks, and then the face I want to do render. Now, right when I do that, boom, it fills in all the data into those timing marks. And that's going to be your movement. Now I'm at 100% right now. As you can see over here, I'm at 100%, which is way, way too high for this motor. So I'm going to have to bring this down a little bit to about 30%. I know that the movement at 30% with this windshield wiper is probably the best kind of look that we're kind of going for. So now that we kind of have that set up, let's render. Let's output the lights, and let's give it effect. Let's see if it worked. And then I'm going to show you there. So there you go. This is live, and I'm showing you that I'm using the existing timing marks very simply in X-Lights. Let me just, boom. So yeah, there you go. So as you can see, the It's kind of, I'm getting used to these transitions and stuff going back and forth. So you kind of see that the bulb is moving with the timing tracks. It's pretty simple, stupidly simple actually. And so let's say that, you know, I want to get a little bit more advanced here. Let's say that, like, you know, I want to actually kind of control, let's say, you know, when different parts of the song kind of creates different reactions when you dance, right? You get a little bit more intense in your dancing towards more intense parts of the song, right? Let's say this middle part, right? I'm not saying this middle part is the intense part of the song. I'm just saying, for example's sake, let's say this middle part right here is the intense part. Everything right here, you're kind of dancing to the beat, kind of slow. But right here, you're going more intense. How would you do that? Well, it's pretty easy. Again, you can just kind of shorten this down. So you stop at the end of this part here. And then you're going to kind of just easily copy this and then place that down right at the end here. Yeah, I'm gonna stop the output because what I'm actually gonna do is during this middle section right here, I'm just gonna extend that to just about right here. And then I'm actually gonna bring up the intensity to about, I don't wanna say, let's say 35, right? So what the effect now, when I render this, is that now when I'm gonna bring it back to the bulb guy, now that when the bulb is moving, I'm gonna output, now I'm at 30% at this part of the song. You know, he's singing, he's dancing. I'm sorry I don't have the music playing right now. I just, for simplistic sake, I didn't want to hook up the mixer. But so here you go. And now we're getting a little bit more intense than the song. He's dancing a little quicker. And I think you get the idea, right? This is hopefully this kind of spurs some ideas for people for animatronics and X lights, kind of what you can do. I wanted this to be a quick little tidbit, but I think it's starting to get a little long. So I'm going to take a quick little break. We'll hear from our sponsors, and then we're going to get right into the interview. So let me know what you think about these little tidbits. I really hope that you, as a community, we start sharing more stuff. This is the build period. I think we could all kind of benefit from sharing some, just, you know, this isn't a great video, you know, to be honest, but hey, I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to put this out there, and, you know, you learn from mistakes, right? You learn by just putting it all out there. So let's all learn together, right? Okay, everyone, I'll see you in just a little bit.
The professional triers and the Holiday Lighting Think Tank have teamed up with Cool Tees to provide you, our VIP listeners, with some cool, awesome, and one-of-a-kind professional triers gear, including t-shirts, brew mugs, can coolies, coffee mugs, and of course, the one and only Think Tank flannel shirt made famous by none other than our own JR. So go to hlttgear.com, that's hlttgear.com, and get your professional triers gear today.
All right, everyone, we're back. Hope you like that ad. And one little quick announcement. In between the ad, we actually just announced a brand new website. It's called the Sequence Armory. And on the Sequence Armory, you're going to be able to, we're going to start kind of, you'll be able to easily download Google Drive or free sequences. And the handy thing about the Sequence Armory is that all the sequences on that website are going to be mapped on a standard layout. So when you see it, you know that those snowflakes are going to be mapped the same way through all the sequences. So when you download that sequence and you map it to your own display, it's really seamless. So I just wanted to make sure I got that announcement in, so in case you missed that. And then without further ado, Jason Chancellor's here to talk about Jdeation Designs, or designer, I'm real sorry. And so Jason, tell me, I don't think a lot of people kind of know much about you. So could you kind of tell me a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. Live in Dallas. I'm in IT, mostly software side, never really been involved in anything kind of hardware related. You know, do kind of Jdeation Design is really just kind of a little hobby business. Certainly is nothing that's paying the bills, but it's a lot of fun. And I get to meet a lot of cool people that are involved in Christmas lights, and I, of course, am involved in Christmas lights as well. Been doing a show for probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now, so relatively new, I guess, but really enjoy it. And my only rule that I have for my wife now is everything that I put new in the show, something must come out of the show. So I'm trying to keep it somewhat contained, which is difficult in what we do.
Well, that's an interesting kind of strategy. I don't think I hear that too often. So, that's a kind of a conservative kind of interesting approach to doing layouts. I mean, I think right now everyone wants to kind of pack the pixels, right? And I'm not saying that's not what you're doing, but you're kind of smart about like taking things out as well. Everything kind of has a place. Is that kind of right?
That's right. That's right. No, I like to keep my show a little more classic. And definitely, I mean, it's already pretty over the top, but maybe not so ridiculously over the top that I get complained on. I think that's what I'm trying to avoid.
What do you mean by over the top? Because I mean, you've seen people's displays. We're all kind of over the top. So like, what kind of display do you have? Is it pixels?
No, it's all pixels, but I enjoy kind of making mine look a little more classic. So it's not everything is a matrix and everything is perfectly spaced. I kind of like my stuff to be a little, like on my bushes, I just do, regular pixels on my bushes the same way I did them 10 years ago, but I just do it with pixels. I do have a matrix on my roof, but I have a pretty light spacing on my roof matrix. My mega trees, again, light spacing on my mega trees and things like that. So I don't know, it's probably 30% of some of the awesome stuff you see some of the other folks doing.
Now, do you kind of stick to like the Boscoyo kind of coral kind of stuff too, or
actually, I don't have any of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
I've pretty much I've used I use the strips for like my mega trees, but I don't really have any Coro at all. Again, because mostly what I've kind of done is really just more of the classic stuff. I kind of decorate my trees in my yard. I decorate my bushes. I outline the house. Have a couple of mega trees and a roof matrix, and pretty simple stuff.
No, I think people will kind of be interested in this really quick. So you decorate your existing trees. How do you kind of map that in X lights? Do you kind of do any kind of do the camera kind of a thing, or do you kind of just do single lines and kind of how do you approach? Just a quick little thing. I'm really curious.
Yeah, no. So my trees, honestly, last year I stopped wrapping my trees. I used to wrap them. Now I just ended up this year. I just put a bunch of floods on them. And then I have some icicles that kind of hang from the trees. But honestly, there are some limitations in X-Lights in terms of what you can do. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but like on my bushes, for example, if you can do some sweeping effects left to right on the bushes, it still looks fantastic. You can't obviously, you can't project images and things like that. But, that's not really the look I'm going for. I'm kind of going for more of that old school kind of retro Christmas look kind of feel. So me losing out on some of the really killer effects are okay.
Yeah. So so to get kind of back to Jdeation Designs really quick. How do you? I'm really curious about that name. Like I kind of looked into it really quick. Is it kind of a play on edition?
It's a play on ideation, which I don't actually even think is a real word either. But it's a word that. It was a word that a bunch of consultants in IT started using years ago when they were saying we're going to go ideate something, which is just kind of like brainstorm, right? And so my first name's Jason, so I just called it Jdeation. So there was not a lot of creativity there. That's how it came about.
All right. So let's kind of describe what you have on the store. So because I kind of want to get into how did you kind of get to making these kind of things. But first I kind of want to kind of show first kind of what one of my favorite things that you make, and then also kind of talk about what's already kind of available on your store first.
Okay. Well, the idea is to be able to customize the mounting plates for these enclosure boxes. So, everybody's using, a lot of people are using like CG 1500s, or maybe some bud box enclosures, or the MTM series are really popular now. But it was always kind of, for me anyways, mishmash and trying to kind of build the enclosure to hold stuff and attach things to the enclosures. And I'd seen some cool videos from some people on YouTube about some how they were kind of doing their enclosure mounting kits, and I actually, so I was a member of a makerspace here in Dallas. It's called Dallas Makerspace. It's one of the biggest ones in the United States, and they have a whole slew of awesome laser cutters. And actually, the first thing that I went to go work on was I was actually designing a little fence post mounting kit for my own show, and I wanted to do it in acrylic, and I thought I could use it. So that's it right there. And that's the first thing I built, and honestly, it just kind of grew from there. And then I really, where I kind of tried to take it next was the ability to be able to customize your enclosure plates. So, using the Jdeation software, which is my background, is all software. I don't really have a hardware background, so I know how to write software. I wrote this software that essentially allows you to kind of go in and position, like your Falcon goes here, and your distro controller goes here, and allows you to lay out all of your components. And then essentially you can then download and print out a cut sheet and use your cut sheet to kind of, if you're going to make it out of wood or whatever, make it in the wood. And if you want, of course, then we also sell acrylic plates that are custom cut specifically to your design. And they're nice, thick, sturdy plates with all the hardware included, everything you need. And honestly, kind of where it is now, I think people get an incredibly clean build using one of these Jdeation kits. They get it exactly how they want it. They can customize it to their heart's content, and it has everything they need, so it's super easy to put together, and we have full instructions. So I think it's a pretty cool tool. I mean, I use it for my own display, and I know a lot of people have used it for theirs, so I think people are really enjoying it. But I mean, you don't have to buy from me either. You can also just go to Jdeation and download make your own design, download it, and cut it out of wood. And a lot of people do that as well. Or, if you have access to a laser cutter, cut it on acrylic on your laser cutter. So lots of opportunities there.
Yeah, I really love your design, your template software, because like you said, you're not like locking it down necessarily, but I mean, you already provide, most of the people I think you're probably seeing are probably using the template, customizing all that, and then getting the acrylic from you, getting that design finally printed. So everything's working out perfect. But exactly like you said, you could take that design, customize it, print that paper out, and kind of get a piece of wood, cut it out, and kind of lay it out yourself to see how it kind of works. I mean, it's super handy. And I'm so psyched to hear that the first product you made was the compact design, because I fell in love with your company because of this design. I mean, it was just, it's just brilliant. What got me to it, honestly, was the fact that the fence post is like a perfect, already easy thing to find, right? You get in huge mounts, cut that up. And then for me, as the viewers could kind of see, I actually do a little bit of colorization on my fence post too, to add a little bit of extra little flair, because I actually have these relatively close to the street. So my thought is, hey, if I have like a black little thing or a box, it's not very welcoming, right? People are going to kind of see that black box. I mean, I can hide it. I don't know, but this is what I was looking for. And your company kind of provided that. And so that's how I kind of found Jdeation. And I'm stoked to hear that was the first product you made.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely that was my trial into this thing, was building that. I mean, I learned how to use Fusion for the first time to design that design, and it went through a ton. It went through probably 2 years of iterations in my own show before what you see there, before I even considered selling it. So it was kind of just a little fun side project that turned into something that now other people can use.
So how many employees do you have in your company? Is it just you, or?
It's just me and a neighbor kid that I pay, that he comes over 3 days a week and cuts acrylic for me. So we've actually worked, I mean, last year I was totally unprepared for the demand of Christmas time. And in fact, I ended up shutting things down in gosh, I think it was mid-October, maybe even, or no, actually, I think it was October 1st, just because I didn't feel like I was going to be able to keep up with demand. This year, pretty much the entire year, I focused on automation. We're cutting more plates now every week than we were, in prime time last year, and we're keeping up with demand right now. I think we have 2 to 3 day business turnaround right now. And it's just because the entire process is pretty much completely automated, and it's simple enough that I can hire the 16-year-old kid that lives next to me to come over 5 or 6 hours a week and cut plates. So it's working out so far.
So you just said everything is automated. Can you please, like, what? How do you automate a laser print or laser cutter? And then you have to weigh all the screws. You have to cut the plex or the spacers. I mean,
so
what?
I wish I could. Well, maybe you want to see how well this will translate.
Yes, I think everyone would love to see that.
So let me show you if I can. I'm trying to do it to my computer, but this. See if you can kind of see this.
Yeah.
This is the Jdeation parts counter. So essentially, this is a scale that sits in the middle. It's hooked up to an Arduino computer, and it tells you over here on the screen, which isn't turned on right now. It basically tells you put 10 of these in the bucket, and then it weighs how many, and it tells you when you get to 10. And this is, whoops. And so then this is like and then this is like a little tray.
Oh, I see it.
It kind of moves along. So that's a terrible video. Sorry.
No.
But yeah, the whole process of making those kits is totally computerized. All the design stuff is computerized now. So we download the cut templates. It prints out all the labels. Honestly, that was the most interesting part of standing up this little business, was getting all that stuff squared away. The actual cutting of the acrylic was the easy part.
Okay. Wow. So that was going to be my next part. What was the hardest part about kind of getting started by doing this?
Think I underestimated how much time was going to be required, because when I started this last year, it was absolutely everything was manual. And it just, there was no way. I mean, listen, I have a full-time job, so this is a hobby. This does not pay the easiest record. In case anybody's asking, this does not pay the bills. In fact, I guarantee I lose way more money than I make on this thing. And the reason I do it is because I enjoy it. It's a hobby. But it definitely became clear at the end of last year that if I was going to do this thing, I was going to have to figure out a way to make it less time consuming, because I just couldn't invest the amount of time that it was certainly going to require.
Yeah, I think most people get burnt out. They either go all out and, they have to either take a hit on the job, or they get, eventually they get burnt out. So I think your smart approach was like, you took that first year, it was intense. You looked back and were like, okay, you took it from like a logistics perspective and said, okay, how we could make this flow, this process work a little bit better. And the automation, I'm just like, what? I'll be honest. Somebody told me that recently, that you did that. So I was like, and I didn't believe him. That's incredible.
So I've got a couple of videos on my YouTube channel with some of the automation we have, like our PEX.
The PEX cutter.
The PEX cutter is out on our YouTube. I need to take a video of our parts counter, because that thing is actually really cool. I've actually invested a ton of time in our parts counter. That's kind of been, and honestly, that's what I've really enjoyed about this little business, is quite honestly building all this other auxiliary stuff, like building the parts counter and building the PEX cutter and figuring out how to kind of automate a lot of these processes. That's been a lot of fun.
It's going to make your company ripe for growth. I mean, you're setting yourself up. I know you don't maybe not see right now that this is I hope you do, that you see that this is going to be a huge potential. This is just the second year, right? And I mean, It's just, I see the sky's the limits, man. More and more people.
I think the opportunity that, and I agree with you, I think really there's a lot of opportunity for this outside of the Christmas lights kind of niche as well. So that's a lot of the stuff that we're planning for right now, is really trying to establish that base, so that if we decide we want to, we can kind of grow it beyond just Christmas lights and kind of move into more just, I think there's a couple of different areas that we're exploring, looking into. And in fact, the design software itself can be used in a lot of different ways. In fact, one of the things that I actually it's actually built into the tool, is we created a Coro designer in the Jdeation Designer. So you could go in and actually create your own Coro designs, and drop little pixel holes all over the Coro in exactly how you wanted it. And then it downloaded it to your computer and created the cut sheet. And also, it also would create the X-Lights model for you. So all that stuff would kind of get done inside of Jdeation. We never actually released it, quite honestly, because I just don't have enough time to support it. But there's a whole lots of things I think we can do with the software.
Yeah, man, you got some brilliant ideas. That is a great idea. Like, I mean, you can even outsource that really to the existing Coral companies that are already out there, you know, and that could really help. Or maybe even potentially a tool for people that kind of just want to customize it, then maybe go to a makerspace and cut it, or maybe send the design to the existing Coral companies and then they can cut it. I mean, yeah, no, I love that. Oh, that's just great. So what's the toughest part about, I mean, it sounds like you're thinking outside of Christmas, but, and that's great. I'm always thinking outside of Christmas and outside of all kinds of different things too. So, but what's the toughest part about owning a business kind of and designing for just Christmas? Like your designs aren't necessarily like that, you know, now that I think about that question. So,
I mean, I think the seasonality is pretty tough to be quite honest. I mean, you know, we opened back up, I think, on December 31st of last year, and I mean, I assumed that the rush was over, and boy, January 1 was crazy as well, and it was crazy until, you know, January, February, and it didn't really slow down until March, and then from March until, you know, July. I mean, it's easy, right? I mean, there's hardly any traffic at all. So I think that's the tough part about it is the seasonality. But you know, but that's a minor thing. And quite honestly, I think the thing I really enjoy about it is just the cool people that I've met inside. You know, every time I do an order with somebody, I feel like it's, in some way I've kind of met a new person, and met a whole ton of new friends doing this, and you know, there's a lot of people that share my passion for electronics, and I think that's what that's what I'm in it for, is just a passion for electronics, and I think that's what a lot of people are in it for.
Have you been to any of the minis and stuff like that? Because like that's really where you get to kind of see, you know, I know as a vendor you're communicating with the people all the time too, but at the minis, that's when I first kind of noticed that, like, hey, you know, yes, I've been communicating with these people on Facebook. I know they're friendly, I know they're personal, but when you actually get to meet them, hug them, you know, you really get to see this is a family-oriented community. You know?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I'll even expand to say, I think that's the entire maker community, right? I mean, you get involved in your local maker space, it's that same feeling, right? I mean, you're meeting people that have that same creative mindset that you do, that are there to just build something for the heck of building something. And those are really cool people to hang around. That's for sure. Some incredible stuff being made.
Yeah, I always loved going to my makerspace here in town. We have a very small one called Robot Garden, and it's more for like other businesses kind of rent out the space and then they use the equipment. But those businesses then allow on weekends for people like me to come in and use those tools. It's just great. And I'm sure the listeners, the viewers, you probably have a makerspace in your town. I'm a very small town and we have one. So I wouldn't be surprised. Look into them. They're great. If you've ever thought about doing like 3D printing, that's a good place to get started. Laser cutting, CNC routing. You want to learn CAD. I mean, on and on and on, you know, and another group of community of people that are just super friendly and everything.
Yeah, I mean, every single thing that's built in these Christmas shows that you can buy today from one of the vendors, you can go to your local makerspace and make it.
Yes.
And learn how to make it. And that to me is the coolest part, is take a class on how to use a laser, you know, and then you can have access to probably a very high dollar industrial laser cutter. Like, it's just really, really cool what the possibilities are.
So let's talk about lasers really quick. I'm gonna nerd out. I always nerd out on my episode a little bit. I'm sure a couple of my listeners and viewers are kind of like, God dang it. But here, I got somebody that knows about lasers, so I'm gonna ask a little laser question. What's your wattage on your laser?
I'm running a 100-watt laser.
Holy, that's a good one.
Yeah.
No wonder you're able to cut those 5mm acrylic, right?
You know, and it cuts fast.
Yeah.
So it takes about, maybe for the medium-sized plates, maybe 3 minutes to cut one. I mean, it's real fast.
Yeah, no, that's and that's a better way to go. You want to go overpowered than, I think most people, when they're cutting like 5mm acrylic, they always, I kind of did a little bit of research, is that like 60 watts or that 80 watts is the range, right? But that's so underpowered. And to begin with, when you get these laser cutters from these companies, they're all from China. They are kind of underpowered. They say they're 80 watts, but they're really 60 and so on and so forth. So you always have to watch that. And so, yeah. And when you're expanding and the company that you're at right now, you want speed, you want accuracy. So you're going to get that from that power.
Yeah, no. And I've got, right now, honestly, I just have a cheap Chinese laser. I mean, they're all made in China.
Yes.
So to be clear, but, and it's the trade-off on these things is you buy a more high-end one. It's going to have a lot of the bells and whistles, that already come with it. Or, I mean, listen, you can go on eBay and you can buy a lower end Chinese laser, and then quite honestly, you can add a lot of that stuff, add a lot of those feature functions to it. So they're becoming a lot more affordable than they definitely used to be. Now, I mean, still, if you want a Thunder or one of the more high end laser cutters, the Thunder is like the one you'd probably see in your makerspace because it's probably a little more industrial. I mean, those things, they're going to be $10,000, but you can definitely pick one up on eBay, one of the little lower power, a little lower quality for pretty affordable now, a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, it's great. So everyone check out their makerspace. You'd be surprised what you can find in there. But let's go back to Jdeation. I kind of want to ask, if you can see on my screen right now, I'm on your website right now, and I want to show the people kind of like what you have right now. So these are kind of the different enclosures that you kind of have that you're designing your mounting systems for, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so let's kind of start off. So I'm designing an enclosure, right? I'm thinking, okay, I got a bud box here. Let's go for this one here. Actually, Jason, what is the most popular one?
I think the best one is the bud box. I'll say that. I mean, okay. I don't know which one is the most popular one, but bud box is the best enclosure.
Okay.
It's a really nice enclosure. It's, maybe $5 more expensive than buying an ammo crate.
Yeah.
But it is a very, very nice enclosure designed for actually electronic storage, waterproof, completely waterproof, really nice enclosure.
Yeah, no, I have a few bud boxes myself. I really, it's strong enclosure. I mean, I use those for more of my commercial kind of stuff. Usually when I have a prop I build these kind of chandelier props that I kind of go over dance floors and stuff like that. So when I'm designing those, I actually use your designs and in the bud box in particular to put up there because it's such a strong enclosure. When the guys that put up the prop up in the sky, above the dance floor, they look at that box and they think, oh yeah, that's secure. I'm not worried. Whereas if they see these ammo boxes or any other thing, they see a CG 500 or something like that, they're thinking, why has he got a coax box?
Yeah.
So these are, if you want to look professional, you want the best enclosure, I agree with you 100%, Jason. Bud boxes are the ones to get.
I would say that's probably that one and probably the other large ammo crate are probably the two most popular ones. Like really the focus has been lately on people trying to get as much power as possible in their enclosure. Although, one of the things that we're working on right now, and we can maybe talk about this later, is kind of where I envision this going is moving away from all the power being centralized in these boxes and really starting to leverage the F48 and more of the distributed types of distributing your power to kind of where you need it.
Yeah,
is kind of the future of Christmas lights and LEDs for sure for our industry.
Yes, definitely. I agree. The smart controllers too. I mean, there's just receivers. I mean, smart receivers. I mean, it all kind of we're pushing out to this like satellite controller systems.
Yep.
You're having a central kind of place and everything. You have these satellite kind of controllers or receivers out in the rest of the yard, and it all kind of comes back to that. So, and again, your website is ripe and ready for that because you got this amazing compact design. I actually use this ammo box crate for a lot of receivers. I use this one for a lot of receivers. I mean, all of them could be used that way. So I want to go and kind of like, I'm going to buy a design from your website. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go. We're going to do the bud box. And as you can see, the viewers, we actually have two different designs here. You have a full top design, a double deck with top, and then a double deck with HB. That's the new kind of the fad that kind of came this year, right out of nowhere.
That's a new thing this year too, is leveraging the common slot power supplies, which actually, if you're planning on putting a ton of power in one box, I think that's a pretty good approach, to be perfectly honest. You get a lot more power for a compact size, and you're not having to stack power supplies or anything like that. I think it's a pretty decent approach.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was a little hesitant first because I'm just like, doesn't that kind of harpen back to like back when we used to take old PC power supplies and kind of get the 12-watt from that and try to do it? And it just seems kind of scary, but it's really like these power supplies are such industrialist server power supplies. They're way night and day between the consumer power supplies.
Yep, agreed.
It's in some ways even more secure than Meanwell in certain points. It's yeah. So let's do that.
Okay.
I haven't looked at this design yet, so I'm kind of curious. So, you were going to say something, Jason? I'm sorry I cut you off.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, so. I'm the worst. So we have as you could kind of see, hopefully, we have all these kind of, the double decker is amazing. I mean, your designs too are just all about like easy use, easy kind of designing, easy kind of taking the power supply in and out. You have it's just customizable. That's the easiest way to say it, really.
Yep.
So we got this standard one, and you could kind of see at the bottom, we have featured variants, and these kind of are like, I want to say, is the appropriate to kind of say the existing templates, kind of the ones that.
Yeah. So I think it's quite frankly, most people purchase from one of these existing designs we have, and this is kind of one of our newer designs. So we only have obviously two main variations for this one.
Let's go to one that has a lot.
I don't know that one. Yeah. That one has more. Okay. But there's a bunch of a lot of variations that we've just kind of established. Either somebody built one and I was like, oh, that's a really good one, and then asked if we could make that a featured design, or some that we just kind of always start out with. But the vast majority of people actually just get one of these existing variations that we already have, because most people aren't doing, they're just, attaching a couple of Falcon components and they need a certain amount of power. But so you can pick from one of these standard ones, but every one of these designs, you can just click customize and go into the designer and move stuff around, add stuff, all those kind of things.
So now I'm in the customized tab that Jason was just talking about. You could move everything around, just say, hey, I'm actually going to only just use one power supply.
Yep.
And I want to be kind of uniform here. So I put it in the center here. And you actually have tools here to help out to keep it center. I noticed that recently, and I was like, oh. Hey.
Yeah, that was a new feature that we added this year, along with also allowing you to, if you just make like some square holes or round holes, you can kind of make those down to the millimeter size now. So that was kind of a new feature that got released this year. Honestly, what's that?
I see. Yeah, the resizing thing here. Okay. Right. That's
so if you just like click on variable rectangle, you can drop go up a little bit there. So it just dropped in the corner, and you can kind of and those are just cut holes. So anything you make anything in black is going to get cut by the laser. That's essentially as simple as it is. So you can kind of make slots or circles or those kind of things if you want to have wire that comes up from the bottom or things like that.
Okay. I also want to show this really important thing. If you don't see anything on here, like if you're using the blank template, you could go to insert electronics and then look at all this. I already have existing templates of almost every single controller.
Yeah, we've got the whole Falcon line, all the new Falcon stuff. We have most of the popular Meanwell power supplies. We're actually in the process of adding all the Meanwell LRS series power supplies right now so that people can, I mean, I really like to see people start switching away from just using the 350 watt power supplies and start leveraging, power supplies that are more suited to what their actual power needs are at the actual prop that they're trying to power. So we're adding all those into the tool right now. Hope to have those done here in the next couple of weeks.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, the customizability is great. So now I'm here and I can, save it for later. I could download it and I have to save anyway. There's this little warning here. And then I should be able to, yep, see, now it's automatically been saved to your My Designs library. And that is probably one of the coolest things about this thing, I gotta say, that you could kind of experiment. You don't have to make the purchase right now. You could kind of experiment, think about it. Am I gonna really buy this big power supply? Am I really gonna have it there? So this is all my different designs. I played a lot with the compact design. I played a lot with the big enclosures. And so, yeah, it's just great. You can go back through. I mean, I think I have one even back from like last year or something like that. And they're always there, super handy. I can make a purchase from one of my designs and it sounds like you're all automated and ready to go at that point. So I could go to fabricate the design. And then you got these little very easy kind of instructions, right?
Yep.
And,
Yeah,
you're
so
off.
we always encourage people to kind of print their design on paper just to make sure that everything lines up to your actual components. Occasionally, like for example, a lot of the eBay components, like if you're using a buck converter or something like that, those eBay parts change, I mean, almost monthly, and they just call it a buck converter. So it's sometimes hard to keep up with exactly what's being produced by the Chinese manufacturers. So we always encourage people to print and just make sure if they're using some kind of maybe eBay type of component that the holes are going to work for it.
Yeah. No, it's so funny you mentioned the the
buck converters.
Buck converters. Thank you. Brain fart. Because that's what I ran into that problem too. And I knew I could have done that. I should have just printed it out beforehand and did the template, laid it out and see if it actually fit with my electronics already. But I didn't do that. So, don't do what I did. Listen to Jason. And it doesn't.
Well, you're not the only one, I can assure you.
Okay.
I think, in fact, we may actually have to take some of that. We only have a few non-standard components. I mean, most of the stuff we have is, either Falcon or Meanwell or brand name kind of stuff. We may end up taking some of the eBay stuff off and just or put it into a special kind of use at your own risk kind of category where it's a little more obvious that, hey, you definitely want to double check this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was my mistake. You right when you go into the fabrication thing, the first step is, hey, do yourself a favor, print that thing out, so, but oh my God, I don't know if you could tell everyone, I'm in love with this company. I'm in love with these enclosures designs.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I kind of want to talk about, where do you see Jdeation in the next 10 years? Like, what does the future hold for Jdeation?
Well, I mean, I think, can I talk about where I see us in the next couple of months?
Yeah, I know. I don't know why 10 years I picked that. What's this? What are you working on?
We kind of talked about it earlier, and I really think that more distributed model for Christmas lights with using these differential receivers and the smart receivers is kind of going to be the way to go. And so we're releasing a full line of designs that are built for smaller enclosures. And I don't know if I know I've already failed once at this, but like if you can just kind of see this one, this is a Budbox 32010. So this is just the inside plate I've got. So you can just see it's a little tiny power supply down here on the bottom. And I've just got, this is for my Raspberry Pi. I was going to use this for my own show to run the show. But we're releasing a whole line of bud box enclosures that are kind of this of smaller sizes, so that you can maybe get a 100-watt, like you can fit 100-watt power supply in this little guy here. And for a lot of folks, if you're just got a couple of props, 100 watts is all you need. And that way you can maybe even attach something this small to the prop itself, totally hidden away. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is really trying to move away from just these giant enclosures where you have to run a bunch of wires across your yard and run power injection, to kind of try and get the power at the prop. I think that's the term I'm going to try to start using. But where do I see it beyond that? I mean, I think, I view this is a weatherproof enclosure that could be used for any industry. I think that's going to be our next logical step, is really just to start spanning out into other industries, other niche industries, other more wider industries. And then I think there's even in the maker community, there's an opportunity for this. If I just want to run a Raspberry Pi and have a really nice enclosure, versus just, sticking it in a plastic box or something like that, I think there's an opportunity to use this. So, we've got to make sure that our process and that we can handle it, from a fabrication perspective. And obviously I haven't had enough time to be able to expand this thing, but that's where I would like to take it. Whether or not it actually ever happens or not, I don't know. But that's where I think it could go.
Do you kind of see yourself maybe teaming up with another kind of another vendor, maybe, to kind of, fill in a little bit of that?
Potentially. The thing is, I mean, again, I'm not doing this for the money.
No.
This is a loser from a money perspective. I guarantee that, if I invest the number of hours that have been invested in this. So, my only concern with trying to partner up with somebody is at some point that it starts becoming work. And I don't really want this. As soon as this starts becoming work is probably when, it's the end of this thing for me. So it's definitely not been work yet. It's been a ton of fun. And so I'm just really not worried too much about exactly where this thing goes. I'm really just more enjoying doing it. And we're just going to kind of let nature take its course with this thing. And if I get to a point where it's taking off, then great. And if I get to a point and the Christmas light industry fades away and people stop doing it, and that's all there was, then hey, it was a fun ride too. So.
Yeah, it's important to really enjoy what you're doing. And you could tell when you look at your products, look at your stuff, you could tell you enjoy doing it. You look at your automation and everything like that, you enjoy it. And so when you take that away, it wouldn't be Jdeation. It wouldn't be the same company.
Yeah, and I think that's why I enjoy the enclosures. So, I mean, a lot of folks, it's interesting. A lot of people view the enclosure making as almost like the hard, like the work they don't enjoy it. And I view it exactly the opposite. To me, that's the part that's the most fun, because that's when you're really getting to mess with electronics at its core, and to see how hardware and software can work together to solve a problem. So I really enjoy doing enclosures. I really enjoy wiring things up. I really enjoy seeing how I can make them look as professional as possible, because it's more like a feeling of a job well done when you can look at something and you're like, man, I'm really happy with how that turned out. That looks really phenomenal, and it looks really professional. It looks clean. It looks neat. That's what I enjoy doing with this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've got all my questions out of the way now. You've been great. Thank you so much for coming on Hot or Not. And everyone, please check out jdeation.com. That's JDEATION.com. And you can get some amazing enclosures. You can customize it yourself. I mean, you kind of saw it here. Jason, do you have anything else you would like to add?
No. I mean, I just, again, if you're thinking of buying an enclosure, make sure you say hi. Again, the reason I'm kind of doing this is just to meet a bunch of people and have a good time. So certainly, if you're buying something, reach out. If you built one of our products, send me a picture of it, and give me some suggestions too. Like some of the best improvements we've made to the software have been where somebody will chime in and say, hey, Jason, really, if you would do X, Y, and Z, this thing would be so much more usable. And like, you know what, that's a great point. In fact, the features that we added this year were, somebody sent me like a laundry list of like 10 things that they thought I should do in the tool. And I think we've done all 10 of those things at this point, but some of the main items that you see there were some of that person's suggestions. So keep the suggestions coming, and like you said, visit Jdeation and download yourself an enclosure design. It's free.
Thanks, Jason, for coming on, and everyone have a great night and day.
All right. Thank you.
Ho, ho, ho. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to get on the nice list. Make sure you join the Holiday Lighting Think Tank on Facebook. Ho, 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 ho.